Jason can stop fretting that I'm going to jinx this football team. They won the 10. They won the bowl game. They did all these things that they haven't done since 2016, and it's all good. And we can no longer jinx the 2022 team. So, hey, they made it to the finish line. Best season in 6 years. Really good season turned in by everyone. And more importantly than that, things project extremely well. We will, of course, talk about that. All sorts of comings and goings for Florida State football. Jason Parker, NBC6 from the top, of course, and Logan Robinson, Nole Game Day. Boys, how we doing?
I'm doing great. I just it's been a while, obviously, Logan. We've talked about this. You know, we're a 10-win team. We're alumni of a 10-win school. Just let that sink in for a second. Also, raise your hand if you picked us to have a winning season. Raise your hand if you picked us to have a winning year. I know Logan did. I
went 6-6.
That's fine.
I believe.
That counts as a winning season. But no, but I do. It feels good that we're finally at that point where we can talk about one of the better teams in college football. It's not just us being biased alumni. You know, Logan had fun. Stay tuned to the show because we're going to find out how many members of the Marching Chiefs Logan had in the team hotel. For those of you who remember last week's episode, Logan was all talking about the Marching Chiefs there. Also, special go to hell to my former boss who made me work all last week for the Cheese Bowl. So a special go to hell to her on that one. You know who you are. You know exactly.
She became a former boss in less than a week?
No, she quit. She took the buyout. They offered a bunch of buyout. Okay. Old and wanted to retire anyway. But she, on her way out the door, made me work all last week so that I couldn't go to the Cheese Bowl. So special go to hell to her on that one. But Logan, I'm going to say it like this. Before the end of today's show, I always do this in the summertime, I'm going to give the fans a special January hot take. You're going to get the start of the hot takes right now. I've got one. I don't know if it's going to be scorching hot. I'm not ready to burn the place down, but it's going to be simmering. So stay tuned.
Hot takes, edition number 1. Got it. We'll have a special graphic.
I'm going to be thrilled for that. I am already sweating. My feet are sweating. Someone please get me a wet rag. I feel like I've got a fever just waiting for that thrilling hot take for what it could be later on in the show. But it does feel good to have 10 wins. I went 8-4 in prediction this year, 2 games off, but in our live predictions piece throughout the season went 12. What was that? 11-1, 12-1. Yeah, 12-1 on predictions this season. So felt a little bit better than last season. I was tied for first in our Nole Game Day staff predictions. So just missed one this season with the Wake Forest game. I felt like an idiot doing that one too. I didn't go with my gut, but I felt like FSU was going to play some better defense. But Sam Hartman still is the king against Florida State's defenses. But just overall, the win in Orlando was great. Being down there to cover it. Brent Venables, being around him quite a bit. Great man. I'm wishing him the best. You can tell that he and Mike Norvell getting along very well, but I think it's just going to take a little bit of time there in Oklahoma. They've got the talent that they're bringing in, and it was good to be around him. But to see that game on Thursday night to what it was, I think it was a little bit different than how we were projecting it to be with Oklahoma coming to play. I mean, I was very impressed with how the Sooners competed. They played for their coach, and they're going to continue to do that. But Florida State comes out on top afterwards, and it comes down to your biggest playmakers that made plays throughout the year with Ontario Wilson. You're looking at Johnny Wilson, of course, Jordan Travis, Trayshawn Ward, guys that played some big games. You go back to Trayshawn Ward at the beginning of the season. He was the only one to find success on the ground against LSU. He was the only running back that would go north, whereas Trey Benson was still figuring things out. And then looking at Lawrence Toafili, Trayshawn Ward, where's your guy in that LSU primetime matchup in New Orleans? And he does that again against Oklahoma to finish off the season. Just a lot of really cool storylines to go through this game. But, Johnny Wilson's one-handed catch is absolutely ridiculous. He had a drop earlier in the game. It's all about response with this team and how, Mike Norvell praises this team on responding, but out of nowhere, one-handed grab that ended up being kind of the sealer for Florida State to go down the field and score, and Ryan Fitzgerald, the end all be all. This is the best part of it all, to end off the 2022 season. Ryan Fitzgerald wins the game and the game-winning field goal for the Florida State Seminoles. You just can't write it any better than that. So, Florida State 10-win season.
Jason,
well, that's our hour episode.
I love it.
Pulled a big game, Jay Coleman, right there. We love you, man. Jesus.
Well, we've been over here talking about your boss and her ticking you off. I had to kind of give the people what they want and some Florida State content.
Yes. Let's talk some football here. So we got a ton of personnel issues and situations, comings and goings to get to. But before we do that, my last point on this bowl game that I would like to pose to both of you and get your thoughts is we all saw the game. Great game. That's a celebration of 2022. What happened in that bowl game that makes you feel good or maybe concerned about some aspects going into 23?
I'm ecstatic about our offense. I will say, you look at what Logan said. Jordan Travis, you're talking about 418 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns. I mean, Logan, you're the stat guy here. When was the last time Florida State had a quarterback throw for 400 yards? Name opponent. It's been a hot minute since that.
I thought you were the stats guy.
Logan's more. He likes to act like he's got his page up there, so I'm letting him play the role. I'm being the supportive older.
You're the historian.
I am the. It's been a while. We'll just say that much. It's been a long while since Florida State had somebody throw for over 400 yards. But you're talking about that. You're talking about, like Logan said, Trey be his last game as a Seminole. We'll talk about that later on in the show. But he goes for 81 yards. He goes for 8 yards a carry and 2 touchdowns. And I want to apologize personally to Johnny Wilson. When Logan asked last week to be the breakout player in this game, part of me wanted to say Johnny Wilson, but I ended up saying Micah Pittman. Johnny, I'm sorry. Have yourself a day. 8 catches, 202 yards, the 58-yard. I mean, I know Ryan, the game-winning field goal, Johnny's was the game-winning play. Without Johnny's play, we're going overtime, and I don't know if we win that game. So I shout out to Johnny. So what offense? I am very happy with that offense. I'm very happy that those guys are coming back. A majority of that offense will be coming back next season, so that gives me some confidence. My one concern, and Logan, I want to touch base with you on this because you look at what the defense did. The defense, for the most part of this season, was light years better than what it has been over the last 5 years. Florida State allowed in the last 2 games a total of 70 points, 38 points to Florida, 32 points to Oklahoma. My question right now is, just judging on this Oklahoma game alone, and the defense giving up 200, close to 250 yards on the ground, Dylan Gabriel throwing for about 240 through the air. Is of Florida State's defense just being tired after a long season, or do you think that's the case of Dylan Gabriel? I would say is the best quarterback Florida State had played since your guy that we talked about. Because you look, the quarterbacks over that span, even Clemson, their quarterbacks didn't play great in that ball game. You know, Miami was supposed to come in with Tyler Van Dyke. Their quarterbacks were god awful. Syracuse's quarterbacks were pedestrian at best. So would you say that this was more of Florida State's defense being tired, or Dylan Gabriel just being Dylan Gabriel?
Dylan Gabriel is a good quarterback. There's a reason why he wanted to go for maybe a bigger program and go get a chance at Oklahoma. And, you know, Oklahoma having a rich tradition of being able to put some quarterbacks into the league. But, you know, Lincoln Riley is no longer there. He's over there with USC, but still want to be on with a bigger program, put his name out there across the map. And, you know, he was making some plays on Thursday night against Florida State's defense. I thought this was not the greatest performance from Florida State's linebacker group. We talked about that in the preview last week, that Florida State's linebackers are going to have to play very, very smart and also keep a close eye on what Dylan Gabriel is going to do. If Florida State's pass rush off the outside is going to get to them and contain, he's going to pull up in the pocket or he's going to go scramble for a first down. He did that. And that's something that Adam Fuller and the defense had to adjust to in the second half. And, you know, eventually you can't keep adjusting. And, you know, Florida State's defense, will give them praise. There was a big jump in improvement this year from even, we've seen 2 years of improvement. It's getting better and better. And I think too, with adding talent to that will be key. But, Florida State was facing a talented Oklahoma offense that put some points on the board in their conference this year. There's no neglecting what they did this year, even with a 6-6 record going into that game. Oklahoma's offense was no joke, and it was going to be not so fun for Florida State's defense on Thursday night having to try to stop that. But then again, you look at Oklahoma's tight end, I forget what his name was, but that was a go-to against that linebacker corps, and he found ways to get him open. And sure enough, on third down conversions, that's where they found their success. So little things like that where Florida State was getting picked apart, and you saw a little bit better of that in the second half. But this was, leaving the game, end game, kind of looking at each other in the box and wondering, man, this defense, what's going on here? But then latter half, looking at the stats and everything, and what you're looking at, what Oklahoma had put together throughout the 2022 season, it made sense. But, it felt a lot like that Florida game there, and it felt a little bit too close for what FSU fans were thinking this was going to be. But, and I'll be honest with you, you didn't have Fabian Lovett. He did not dress out for this game. That's something that we're probably missing here, which we've seen whenever Fabian Lovett is not in the game, opposing offenses seem to find a lot of success in the run game. In Florida State, it sucks. We'll talk about in a minute with Fabian Lovett announcing that he'll return. It sucks. But, that can't be the same case going into 2023 in case Fabian Lovett is not in the game or he needs rest, and they're going to allow this offensive production on the run game. That just can't happen. So that definitely hurt them with Lovett not being in the game.
On the flip, sorry, we're rest also for Logan. On the flip side of that, when you look at the offensive, we talked about Treshaun Ward. He had a big game, the 80-plus yards on the ground, but now he's announced that he's going to enter the transfer portal. Does it concern you at all, the big stage of the bowl game, that Trey Benson was kind of silent? Does that concern you at all heading into next season?
No, not one bit, I don't think. Treshaun Ward, it's what Mike Norvell's offense is right now, and it's going to continue to be that way. You're going to push out 3, maybe even 4 running backs and on offense throughout the night. And Treshaun Ward was the one that was finding success, and that kind of was the way, that was the way in the early part of the season where Treshaun Ward, maybe even Lawrence Toafili, were finding some momentum, and then you'd see Trey Benson in the third and fourth quarter get things going, and then the latter half of the season, it was really Trey Benson getting the success because Treshaun Ward had been injured. So no worries on Trey Benson there. Treshaun Ward was a guy that put on a really nice performance in his last game for Florida State. I wish him all the best. I know we'll talk about him, probably talk about him now, but he that was a really nice performance to see from a guy that went from a walk-on his first year, earned a scholarship, earned a starting job, and is going to get a lot of generous offers to come join some good programs across the country.
You can't do that to me, Logan. If you throw out a player and you don't know his name, I just expect to know it, and it kills me when I don't know. That was Braden Willis. As soon as I went to the depth chart, I'm like, of course, Braden Willis.
Number 9. I think it's number 9. I just remember seeing that jersey, and I was like, watch out for number 9. And Dylan Gabriel just found him all throughout the evening, and that was something that Florida State had to adjust and figure out in the second half. And that's something I will give Adam Fuller credit for throughout the year, that they have made really smart adjustments going into the second half, something that kind of lacked a little bit last year. There's been a lot more productive. And, I think too, with Florida State adding on some off-field analysts to help with that, really goes to help improve the coaching staff as well. So, much needed win though for Florida State to get 10 wins. I was going to say the hype train continues though. If you lose against Oklahoma, that's fine. It's a bowl game, but then you get the complaint, the fans aren't so happy, yada, yada, yada. I'm as a being in the business part of things, I'm very happy that Florida State did win that game. The clicks will go on.
Logan, since you were there and you've already talked about how you're so much of a better member covering the media since you were there and I wasn't, but whatever, we'll get to that in later shows. We have a whole summer to talk about that. Answer the most important question I think a lot of Florida State fans who are watching at home would like to know. What flavor Cheez-It was dunked on Mike? What was the flavor of the Cheez-Its?
I think it was just the OG one. I think it was just a regular Cheez-It. And I will say I never had one bite of a Cheez-It while there, and I'm pretty depressed because they had the media hotel and they had the suite upstairs where they had, here's the deal. Here's the deal, Jason. They had a whole, we're talking gigantic cooler of beers. You had your seltzers. Then they had a whole bar up there too with liquor and everything and wine. Where do you think my attention immediately would go to once arriving in there? And there were spread out boxes of Cheez-Its everywhere. Some that had not even been shown to the public yet. You could try out. Where do you think the attention went to immediately?
I understand with you because we've done 190 plus episodes of where your mind is. That being said, you have to trust me as somebody who is over 25 months in recovery. During my days as an alcoholic, Cheez-Its was a solid go-to meal.
Did that distract you?
I was trying to help you out there.
I know. But it was definitely, though, when they're free, though, it does help too. That's sadly, but I was more attracted to that than anything. But I think it was a regular Cheez-Its that were thrown on top of Mike Norvell after that game. It was great to see the turnout too. All the FSU fans highly expected that would be the case. You look at Purdue and LSU, there was maybe 16 people there in attendance for that. They had more people at the LSU get together in the hotel room before that. Anyways, but there wasn't a lot of people there in Orlando for the LSU Purdue game, but a ton more FSU fans showed out for it, and it was much needed. It was a really good experience, and I think the biggest plus for both teams, or mainly just FSU and then LSU, is that they'll be able to go back down there to start off their season in 2023, which we're already in, which is crazy to think of, but I think that helps a ton. Mike Norvell felt like that was a nice little warm-up for what's going to come, which most likely will be a top 10 matchup in Camping World Stadium.
No word yet if Cheez-It is going to sponsor that game, since you have the Cheez-It Bowl champions and the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl champions playing. No word yet.
Damn it. No word?
Cheez-It just simply wants to own Florida Bowl games. They just want to take over. Apparently.
I think they want to own MarkRogersTV. We've been talking for years
I
about
want them to.
You've been talking about a sponsorship. We're trying to help you out here, Mark.
Let's do it. Let's get there. Let's do what we need to do.
Prince Ched Ward at our game. They had Ched Z at the LSU Purdue game. The giant Cheez-It, 6-foot Cheez-It. I mean, I'm saying there are sponsorship deals here. Cheez-It, reach out to Mark. I promise you won't regret it.
This is part of the property right here. What you get every Wednesday night, Cheez-It. You get Logan, you get Jason and I, typically Big Game James. It's a deal.
Logan's a drunk.
Beautiful.
Logan's a drunk. He needs Cheez-It food. I'm still a fat guy at heart. I like Cheez-Its. We can do this, guys.
So now we come to the personnel point of this, and this is going to go on without end. We're only 2 months away from spring practice starting, and then when that's over, we're going to have another transfer portal session. So we got transfer portal, we got the NFL draft. Of course, the deadline to announce for early entry is coming up on January 16th. And then we also have, of course, more recruiting and possible commits coming in before the first week of February. So Logan, if you take this on, you can take whatever category and we'll run with it, whatever you think is most important. And we will run with all these personnel changes.
Probably go to Fabian Lovett first. I think that's one of the biggest ones. That was one that was highly anticipated to see where he was going to end up picking, either going pro or staying with Florida State. He was injured for a good amount of the season in the middle of it there, and you get him back for the last couple of games, and it goes to show, like we were talking about earlier, it's a big presence there in Florida State's defense, and also allowing pressure to opposing backfields. But that's huge for Florida State in 2023, as you're adding on transfers coming in like Frisk, the Western Michigan talented defensive tackle, alongside him with Joshua Farmer, guys stepping up there with Malcolm Ray, and some of the younger guys behind them. There's a guy that's one of the biggest leaders in the team, and you're bringing him back 2023. It's big. Now this kind of feels like how season of adding on a lot of this talent, and still the offense has added on quite a bit. But this Florida State defense, talent-wise, has kind of caught up to the offense, in my opinion. And there's a lot of things that Fabian Lovett brings overall to this team, on the field, off the field, that is huge. So a really nice addition for next season, because he was going into the season, I think we all projected him to leave and move on alongside Jamie Robinson. But that injury did not help whatsoever, and him missing time. And I think this is a smart decision, definitely with NIL being an opportunity here to help keep him for another season. He can take care. He's got a young little man too to take care of. So the NIL opportunities are going to help in that regard. And you can have a chance now to up your draft stock and go play in the league after this next season. And I think that was a smart decision on his end. And it only helps too for Florida State's future in 2023.
Flip side now, one of the guys on the defense, Jamie Robinson, in the secondary, he decided he announced New Year's Day that he was heading to the NFL. From what Jamie Robinson, I believe, one of the better secondary players we've had in a while. I would argue. I mean, Asante Samuel was good. I think obviously Derwin James, those are NFL guys, but I think Jamie Robinson him as far as time at FSU. How does that decision affect the secondary for Florida State heading into next season?
Well, crazy this happened today, but Akeem Dent announces that he's returning, and that was expected. I was expecting him to make a return. He didn't have the season that he wanted to. It would have been very nerve-wracking for Adam Fuller and that secondary. If Akeem Dent and Jamie Robinson were leaving at the same time, you were pretty damn thin there, because what you're left with is Shyheim Brown, and you've got a lot of youngsters behind them, not a lot of experience that you could work with there. And you had a Sidney Williams that's entered the transfer portal that got moved down to linebacker. Doesn't seem like that maybe wanted to be his role. He entered the transfer portal and is going to look on to another program there. But Florida State, seeing Jamie Robinson go, I thought that he had a better season this year. It was really kind of risky for him to make that return this last season. He had chances to go, I think, and it wouldn't have been as high as he'll probably go this year. But he's not just a guy all the way back 3 levels behind on the defensive side of the ball, but he can come down and crash down and cause havoc. And we've seen him in blitz packages and what he's able to do. One of your best tacklers to, get off speed to any kind of player with the ball in his hand, and physicality is what's going to attract a lot of NFL teams. So this was a smart decision. I know there was kind of some chatter there. I know that there was a deal offered in place for Jamie to stay another season, but I think the time was up, and Florida State will be happy to watch him get drafted in this upcoming NFL draft. So it's just going to be a little interesting. I'm looking forward to the Shyheim Brown show in 2023. He's shown me enough. That's all I need to see. He made some big time plays this year, including that UF jumping over 30 yards to the left side to cause that deflection. I mean, that just shows you what you're going to get out of Brown, and a lot more of it next year. And you're hoping that Akeem Dent, if staying fully healthy, he can bring that kind of nature. But you just got to figure out moving forward some of these younger guys, or is there some position changes? Who goes to safety? You lost Sam McCall, who Florida State was trying out at safety at the end of the season. He enters a transfer portal. Azrae Thomas, I think, needs to stay at corner. It's just the way it goes. But Jamie Robinson absolutely deserves to go into this upcoming year draft. He showed me everything. I was kind of just like, please leave, go do your thing. It sucks, but now that you have Akeem Dent back with experience, that helps.
And it also helps when you get one of the bigger name transfers coming in, Fentrell Cypress, 4-star from Virginia. This is a Rock Hill, South Carolina native. 3-star out of high school, 4-star out of Virginia. Where do you see him fitting in? Do you see him possibly being in the starting lineup for that LSU?
Yeah, he'll be a starter. He'll be a starter against LSU. I know there's a lot of conversation. Well, what about Azrae Thomas? Because right now I'm projecting this to be Renardo Green and Fentrell Cypress. Those two should be your starters going into that LSU game. I thought Renardo Green. I understand the Azrae Thomas love as he should. He had a nice, really impressive freshman year and got a lot of playing time. But Renardo Green, not a lot of people talked about him because he wasn't getting beat on a whole ton of routes, wasn't getting mossed, and brought a lot of physicality to Florida State's defense this year. And if you go back to the LSU game, there was a lot of concern about LSU's wide receiver room, Jason, and there wasn't a lot of talk about it afterwards. And Renardo Green did his job, and Kayshon Boutte, and a lot of other talented wide receivers that Florida State had to face against throughout the season. I think some people might be sleeping on Renardo Green, but Fentrell Cypress, Renardo Green, then Azrae Thomas should be your top three corners. I think too, Jarian Jones showed some really nice, had some really promising signs in 2022. That room is going to be filled with competition, and that iron sharpens iron. And that's how these practices are going to go, guys. It's just going to be hard to get Azrae Thomas off the field. He was on the field quite a bit this year, but there's a reason for depth, and when it's your time, it's going to come. But there's going to be a lot of competition in that room between Cypress, Renardo Green, Greedy Vance, who is your leader in interceptions this year. Who would have ever thought that was going to happen? But how about a big season from him coming in? It's going to be fun to watch in the spring for these guys.
Before we talk, I know that there's something that has never been in the portal. There's something that's been committed to Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, for 190 plus shows that we've been doing. This 193 shows. It worked this season.
It did work.
I think it's the reason we got to 10 wins. I'm not going to lie.
I think every one of them hit except for one. I think it was the Wake Forest one.
So I need you to tell them what to do.
Well, if you hit the like button, then maybe Jared Verse will return. How about that? Since that seems to be the last one on the docket for announcing their return to Florida State. Star player there. Hit the like button, and then Jared Verse will announce his return any moment. Who knows? It could be this evening, could be tomorrow, but he's cutting it quite close. I'll be honest with you, but I think there's some optimism. There. But yeah, hit the like button, and we'll just keep the good luck going. I think there's a lot of optimism right now, so we'll just keep on riding on it until it all falls and breaks off in 6 years, 7 years.
I'm gonna laugh if he says, "I'm Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football." Logan said, "Hit the like button."
Like button.
If I can get some credentials, I would mention on one of these news conferences with Norvell that he doesn't know where his good fortune's coming from, but I could let him know.
I think he knows.
Yeah.
He saw at the Miami game when I was there. The game that Logan said he was going to come down for, but he didn't come down for. But I was at that Miami game, and I remember he saw us, and I remember he held up the thumbs up. So he knows about the power of the like button.
Maybe he does. That was a sign. That was a signal. The signal that Mike is watching.
A press conference or something. I don't know.
Probably.
Well, Trayshawn Ward, he is hoping for some likes in his new destination, wherever that is. We have found out some transfer portal entries of note that have made their destinations known, have landed somewhere, but Trayshawn Ward still, obviously this is just recently announced. So this one, until Jason explained this to me before we recorded, I wasn't shocked, but still he's been pretty prominent in this offense.
It's a little bit disappointing for me, and I'll admit it didn't 100% catch me off guard, because it's more of okay, you had a big game. Yes, you had your injuries over the course of the season, but you're talking about a guy, 628 yards over the course of the season, 7 touchdowns, big game in his last game. It's disappointing because I would have loved to have him and Trey Benson together. I think that two-headed monster would have reminded me a lot about what we had like in 2013 when you had Devontae Freeman Jr. and then you moved Carlos Woods over from the defensive side of the ball. I remember that time in 2013 when that was just a dangerous group back there. But if you were thinking about this from Trayshawn Ward's side, it's the best time to go. At a 2-touchdown game on national TV against a decent name in Oklahoma, you weren't going to be the number one guy because obviously Trey Benson was the point. If you're going to do it, now is the best time to do it. And I think, and I'm going to respect the way he did it. He did it with class. He did it with dignity. Mike Norvell responded as such. And I think that's another thing with the way the culture is changing is that these guys are leaving, but it's not like they're leaving with hard feelings. These guys aren't announcing their transfers and saying, to hell with FSU. They're saying, hey, I had good times here. I had great moments, but I need to go do what's best interest. Mike Norvell is being absolutely respectful. The way he's handling it, I think there's a lot of respect. Going back to the decision, Logan, you're around that team more. What are your thoughts on this, and how do you think this will affect Florida State's offense coming up next season?
Yeah, I think this is with Benson, it seemed, being the solidified starter for next year seemed to be the case. I'm very high on Trayshawn Ward. I was very high on him the last couple of years. Just seeing him in practice 2 years ago and some of the scrimmages, I was like, yeah, that's your starting running back. He's got all the skills. He's got good vision. And you saw what he did against Oklahoma. We just saw that not too long ago. Great character. Goes from a walk-on, fights, competes. Had multiple offers to other schools across the country, but decided to come into a Florida State running back room and compete and win a starting job, and then eventually win and earn a scholarship for Florida State under Mike Norvell. I thought just the way that kind of person you want to have in that locker room. I think that's something that Mike Norvell is, sadly going to miss. He put out a tweet, like you were saying, Jason, a lot of these tweets coming from Mike Norvell in response to these guys announcing that they're going to transfer out into the NCAA transfer portal. Like, there's a lot of love for these players and wishing them the best and get better opportunities. There's a reason why they were practicing too. Like a guy like Amari Gaynor, who just announced that he's going to be going to stay in the ACC and go to North Carolina. There is a lot of support for them to get better opportunities, more playing time to show their talent. And some of it might be different position changes, might be just simply more playing time, or, just pass up on the depth chart. There's just certain things that go on in a football team. And luckily Florida State has been very supportive of these guys. And it just goes to show the culture change that's happened in that locker room. But, I kind of knew of this coming before the bowl game a couple weeks beforehand, kind of told from the staff alone. It was very transparent that, that playing time was going to be cut down going into 2023. That injury did not help whatsoever. And I think, Ward absolutely deserves somewhere where he can be a primary back. From what I was told earlier today, a couple schools, Kansas State, Georgia Tech, have reached out, and there's been a ton more too, from what I've heard on the FSU side of teams intrigued on Trayshawn Ward. So look for him to get a lot of visit opportunities. But this is loaded running backfield, guys. This is a lot of talent there, and for getting a guy like Isaiah Holmes, who transferred from Penn State, to come and compete for playing time. We've already talked about Trey Benson. We know what you get out of Trey Benson, but you've got Lawrence Toafili, who is going to return for 2023. And then you've got CJ Campbell. You've got a true freshman who we saw flashes of, not maybe a whole ton of game experience, but we got to see him in practice. And yeah, he's got what it takes. Rodney Hill is also there. So too many running backs in one room, and Samuel Singleton, who's a true freshman, coming in that running back. And it's just too many.
Richard Hill, I'm sorry. I want to say Richard Hill. I'm sorry. I apologize. You misspelled Tatum Bethune.
Yeah, I was going to say. Okay, that's why I posted that.
Yeah, exactly. Logan, moving on from that one for a moment. So now, when you're talking about what Florida State and like we still have until the 16th before people have to make decisions to enter the NFL. Verse is probably our last big one that we have to worry about at this point. Mm-hmm. Moving into signing day, February, the original, the OG signing day before early signing period came a couple of years ago. What needs do you think Florida State is going to focus on over this last month? And who are some of the names you're hearing that could sign with Florida State in February?
Right now, it's kind of a little bit more quieter than anything. They did what they needed to do with Cypress. They did what they needed to do with Fisk, bringing him in, because that was a major need for Florida State's defensive line. Definitely, if Fabian Lovett was intending on leaving, you're going to have some help there on the interior defensive line, just because what we saw this year and some of those offenses finding success, definitely on the ground. But I think there's going to be maybe a few names later on that might pop up. You're looking at a few, like we had South Carolina defensive end transfer. I don't have the name on top of my head right now, but he is visiting currently at FSU, and adding some maybe extra depth there. Now, if you're bringing in him or if you give him an offer or whatnot, I don't think that really eliminates Jared Verse coming back or anything. I think that's just adding depth, because you have a lot of younger talent, but you don't have a lot of proven, experienced talent outside of a few guys. So just adding more depth there never hurts anything. I'm not entirely sure if they're done on the offensive line yet. I know Miami offensive tackle put in, Florida State in his top 4 moving forward for him. We'll see if that ends up happening, because Florida State already landed one rival down in your area, Jason, with Darrell Jackson. But, Florida State adding Darrell Jackson, adding Fisk there, did what they needed to do on defensive line, and they could be adding more on the offensive line. We'll see what ends up happening. But I think it's a little bit more kind of wait and see. And really the big question mark is what Jared Verse intends on doing here, because that changes a little bit of things and what you want to do there at defensive end. Derek McLendon's coming back, your starter on the other side. But if Verse leaves, then Patrick Payton moves into that starting unit. And behind that, you've got Byron Turner. You've got Dante Anderson, just talking about guys that are on scholarship this year. And then you're hoping for some of the younger guys like a Lamont Green Jr. to step in and play a role. And you were really hoping to have Keldrick Falk come into it, but he ends up flipping to Auburn. So that's a position that I'm keeping a close eye on as we move in through the next couple of weeks when we go into February.
You said a name just now that I think we didn't give enough praise to over the course of the season, but who came on by the end of the year and was a dominant force. Patrick Payton. Pat Payton from Miami Northwestern High School came up to FSU. That man was a beast. I'm going to go out on a limb. I think he's going to end up being the star of that defensive line next season.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, the competition to watch. If Jared Verse comes back, the competition to watch will be McLendon versus Pat Payton. And if Payton has another improvement jump like he had in the spring when we saw him, and then jumping into fall camp, then McLendon's got a lot of work ahead for him. And I'm not to say McLendon hasn't improved too. He has, but Pat Payton's ceiling, his talent ceiling, is a lot higher than McLendon's, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was mentioned during the bowl game by, I'm trying to think who was doing the game, but the color analyst on ESPN for the game.
Dan Orlovsky.
Orlovsky was doing. And I got to say that resonated with me. I was like, well, I know he's a good player, but he was like, yeah, he just jumps off the film and he's just taken off and going to get even better. I was like, okay.
Yeah, Mike Norvell was raving about him. If you listen to the post-game press conferences, starting with, I would say, probably from Georgia Tech on, from after the way, Peyton came down. He's a Miami guy. The way he came out here, had some big plays in the Miami game, and just over the season, you saw his growth. And I think that's what Florida State expected from this point on. But here's my question now for you, Logan, and it's also a question for Mark. Are you guys ready?
Absolutely. I love when I get included in these questions.
Get Mark with a good one here.
But are you ready for the first hot take of 2023?
Love the hot takes. You're getting right to it. Postseason. We're in the off season, just 1 week into it, and you're.
I I am because I'm feeling a little frisky with it. 10 wins. It's got the juices flowing first time since the 2016. But I'm willing to say this, and Logan, we could talk about it. I don't think it's a scorching hot take, but I think my first hot take of the year, with the ACC going to no divisions next year, and with us essentially being stuck in the ACC for at least one more season, I think the Florida State Seminoles, that Florida State will play an ACC championship game next season. I think Florida State right now, you can look at what took place over the course of bowl season, and you could say that Florida State, with a 6-game winning streak, the longest winning streak right now of any team in the ACC, one of only 5 teams to actually win. I legitimately believe Florida State right now, I think they will still probably lose a stupid game. There'll still be a game that we're going to be frustrated about in the ACC. Florida State will do enough to get to the ACC championship game. Logan, what do you think?
I think that's the expectation. That's what it should be. When Jordan Travis coming back, that should be the expectation. That should be almost as a requirement almost. If you're going to be bringing back all that talent, you should be fighting for the ACC championship. Goodbye to the divisions. It was awful. I mean, it's been awful the last 5 years. I mean, it's always been either Florida State.
Longer than that.
The Coastal Division was awful.
No, well, that's what I was going to say. I was about to say Florida State and Clemson. That's all you would really watch is that side of the conference. It didn't really matter about what was going on over there. It was just been very bad for a lot of years. So no, I think you're looking at the top 2 teams, with it being Florida State and Clemson. I'm looking at Clemson next year. They've got a not so rough one. Have we learned about Sam Hartman? Yeah, he's gone, right? Am I late on that?
The big rumor is Notre Dame.
Yeah. They face Notre Dame on November 4th.
Yeah, that would be
there's a lot of I think there's the expectation requirement is to reach an ACC championship with the talent coming back, Jason. I don't think there's any ridiculously about it anymore. I think Florida State, with bringing back Fabian Levin, it's crazy to say. I think they would have gotten really close to beating Clemson this year. They end up being one of the top ACC teams in the country. This is something that should be an expectation at this time and place as we head into 2023. After what we saw this year, the improvement, man, and beating teams that you should beat and beating them in a good margin there is something that we haven't seen in a little while, and it starts to feel like Florida State football again. And when it starts feeling like Florida State football again, you should be going to ACC championships.
Look at our schedule next season. I don't want to. We'll over the course of the summer, the spring, the summer, we'll dive more into the schedule. Once the schedule comes out later this month, we'll dive right into it. But I want to ask you to the schedule of the 12 teams on our schedule next season. LSU won 6 of their last 8 games. Duke won 5 of their last 6 games, 5 games of the season. Southern Miss won their last 2 games. But then you look at the rest of the schedule. Non-conference. Northern Alabama lost their last 9 games. Florida lost their last 3. Boston College lost 6 of their last 7. Miami lost 3 of their last 4. Syracuse lost 6 of their last 7. Wake Forest lost 4 of their last 6. They won a bowl game. Virginia Tech lost 7 of their last 1 win being by 1 point over Liberty. To me, this is where I'm going to say it like this. To me, the LSU game is the most important game for because if we come in that LSU game, right now we are coming in hot. Like you said earlier, I think it'll be a top 10 matchup between both teams playing hot at the end of the year. I think game because if we win that game, conceivably our toughest road game is probably obviously Clemson and maybe Pitt. But other than that, it's a very, 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 very winnable schedule next season.
I would have loved to have seen a Florida State Clemson rematch at the end of the year. I would have been fascinated to see that. because I think Florida State just continued to improve. Clemson leveled off. Of course, Cade Klubnik was the right decision, but as we saw against Tennessee, he's got a lot of learning to do. He's great talent, but a lot of learning to do. Would have loved to have seen that game. Would have loved to see Florida State play the three teams that they lost to, the other two teams that they lost to later in the season, because they certainly the schedule was front loaded, but they did, as to Jason's point, they did to inferior teams what they used to do, what you would expect Florida State to do: trample them, trample Georgia Tech, trample Boston College. And it was impressive. Now, Jordan Travis, you guys know where I was on him 2 years ago. It was, okay, this
You were a hater. You were a hater.
Oh, okay. Let's be more accurate than that. I said he's a first-time starter, and based on where he is right this second, he is not an ACC starting quarterback. He's not a Florida State ACC starting quarterback. But what did he do? He took a big leap in 21, then he took another big leap in 22. This guy's arguably, he's a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the nation now. He improved so much as a passer and leader, and now he's coming back for another season.
Oh, nobody, and I think Logan and I are arguably two of the biggest Florida State homers there are out there. We both love. That being said, neither one of us was dumb enough to say before the start of the season that Jordan Travis would throw for over 3,100 yards, and just put up the number. But I think this is the best story in college football. Because what was the one thing we talked about? We sat here and we beat that dead horse last summer, that Florida State was going to win based on can throw the ball. We saw some of it towards the end of the 2021 season where they trusted him more to throw the ball. We saw more of his talent throwing the ball. But you're talking about something this season that only 3 other quarterbacks in Florida State history have done. All 3 winning a Heisman Trophy, all 3 of them winning a national title. That competition. So, look, I'll ask you this question, and it's a 2-part question. Thank you, Champs99, for agreeing with me. I didn't say it was I said it was a scorching take. There was some smoke coming from the take. There will be more this summer. But Logan, I guess my question to you is, seeing what Jordan Travis did this year, what is his 2023 season? And then along those lines, looking ahead at the 2023 schedule, what do you think is the most important game, the most pivotal game this coming season?
Jordan Travis getting to New York City is probably your I wouldn't say like his ceiling, but like where I think he is mentally, along with his coaching staff, are wanting to get him there, and his program is, they're pushing on a lot of stats they've been doing all throughout the season, because he doesn't get in a lot of the national attention love as some of these other teams and their quarterbacks. It's just not the case right now. And Florida State is building that brand back up to do that. And they're putting themselves on national television left and right. And Jordan Travis is putting on shows. Do it against Oklahoma. You're going to throw for 400 yards for the first time in your career. But that's what needs to be the expectation for Jordan Travis this next season. And I want to give a major shout out to Tony Tokars in his first season practically coaching too on the college side. He's thrown into being the quarterback's coach at Florida State University, and what he was able to do statistically. I wish I had my thing open over here. I don't have it. It's on my phone, but the numbers difference from last year to this year, I'm sure everybody's seen it on their own, are remarkable. And, that goes to a lot of things of staying healthy too throughout this year. Something that Florida State had to work on down throughout this offseason, Jordan Travis too, on making sure that he would be sustainable and be able to go through every game throughout the season, which he ended up doing. That was a big time. That played a major part in what Florida State was able to find successfully on the field in 2022. So shout out to Tony Tokars. That was it's impressive to see that, and what we saw, the strides from Tate Rodemaker. I know you're talking about next year's games, and I can't wait till we can jump into this last year. But the biggest game from this year to me was Florida State at Louisville. Jordan Travis goes down. You've got guys flying down, hurt. Jared Verse is hurt. Fabian Loved. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's going down. And previous years, Florida State's team used to just say, F it, we're done. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm ready to go back home. But that team stayed and competed. Tate Rodemaker had to respond after his interception. He goes in and leads Florida State down to have a game, win the game for the Seminoles, and Johnny Wilson steps up there too. That was the turning point. I have it's a strong opinion. That was the turning point for Florida State as a program overall that we've seen in a very long time, was Florida State at Louisville this year, in my opinion.
And I don't have nearly the credibility that Logan does, but all you have to do is go back to our post game from that game. We had Logan on, and we both were just going, like, I was like, this is huge. Like,
yeah,
this team has laid down, not fought through adversity for the past 3 or 4 years. I didn't even think Louisville was that good of a team. That wasn't the point. Actually, they turned out to be a pretty damn decent team. Mm-hmm. And on the road, and with all that adversity, best players going down, and where Tate Rodemaker had never shown an ability to do anything in a meaningful game against a decent opponent, yeah, that was huge.
Logan, how fun was it to do post games when we won? Because I remember that ugly one we did in Miami, 2020. You were
a whole 180. Well, I was willing to get on with Mark at 12:30.
Yeah.
Mark's on YouTube till 4 a.m. doing his thing, so that was nothing for him. But I was popping on. I think I was getting pretty sick too. But I was like, I got to pop on for this one because it just showed how big that was for that team. I think it created a lot of confidence. A lot of players respected each other a lot more. I know we can go back to the LSU game. That was that's top 2. Top 3, probably top 2 with the block kick. That a lot of things changed there, and for Florida State, including recruiting. But just internally as a program, I want to go back and watch that game and just see the fight that they had. Some of the guys that didn't play a lot come in and make plays. Veterans making plays. Just, it was something special. And Trey Benson also having a big second half for Florida State, and you're like, dang, okay, Trey Benson has it, huh? He does, and he making the haters look stupid. That was a crucial moment for Florida, and we might go back to it in a couple of years from now and say, wow, that really was it. I know it's a little early, but I think that was a crucial point for Mike Norvell, and it showed what Mike Norvell had been working on in that locker room for multiple years, and it had to be one of the ugliest things to work on. I'll be honest with you. Just hearing things we're here in Tallahassee, just getting the feel for what that locker room was 3 years ago for Mike Norvell to come in and do that. I think it just showed what Florida State was able to do on the culture side of things. And it started in that locker room in the second half, knowing what was going to come. And Tate Rodemaker putting out a really nice performance for Florida State to win that game.
Well, tune in next week when Logan recaps a Friday night game in September against an ACC Atlantic opponent.
Heck yeah!
There you go.
What's your favorite win, Jason? The block
from this past season?
Oh, I wouldn't say the favorite, but the one that you're like, wait, there could be 10 wins. Like, what would be like? This team has turned. This team has turned the point. It's turned the corner, I guess.
The block was fun. Beating New Orleans was fun for that one. The one that convinced me this team could do something was, and you're going to Miami.
I knew that was coming.
No.
They're awful. They're awful, Jason.
They're awful.
Hear me out. They're awful.
Hear me out.
We could have gone out there and scored. I hope you know that. Like, Rodemaker could have thrown you
Logan, please
a 15 route quick slant for a touchdown against Miami.
Logan Manners.
I put a burst. I can get downfield.
Mark could go to deep route. Mark.
Don't interrupt your elders. Anyway, the point I'm getting to. We have seen Florida State, though, in the past play down to the teams they've played. We have lost 2007, for example, that we had no business losing to. So it's not so much that we beat Miami, but the fact that we went out and dominated them and talked about, the way we should beat teams that are inferior to us, gave me the confidence that this team could do something. I think that was one. I think the following week against Syracuse and beat Syracuse, holding them to 3 points the following week. Those two, I think, combined.
Two awful teams.
I'm sorry, Syracuse actually went to a bowl game, unlike Miami. But those two, I think, were the ones that gave me the most confidence that things had finally turned around. Because how many times did we look, for example, in the 2020 North Carolina when they were ranked number 5 in the country, and then what did we do the following week? Laid an egg against a 1-win Louisville team.
North Carolina wasn't that great then, we learned.
I don't disagree with you. You guys, I said they weren't a true top 5 team. But the point I'm getting to is we have played down. We've played down to bad teams before. This was the first time where we beat teams the way we are supposed to. And that's what gave me the confidence that I think this team, I'm not willing to say we are going to compete for the college football playoff next season, but I definitely, there's a certain bowl game in Miami on December 28th in Miami Gardens, Florida, that is the home of the ACC champion that come June might have us traveling down to South Florida for a bowl game next season. Then Logan will somehow figure out a way to make an excuse that he won't get to.
Is that the playoffs down there? Is there a game
No, the
down
playoffs
there?
are down here in the 2024 season. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I'm willing to say we are a playoff team yet. The off season has started.
TCU did it.
And Georgia's going to beat them in the national title game. Let's just.
Well, of course they are. That's not making the playoff. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here. It's every Wednesday we do this. So guess what? Get on back here next Wednesday at 6 Eastern. Check out our show with Jason, with Logan. Logan, tell the folks about the fine work there at Knoll Game Day.
We're live tonight at 8. And then we've got a special guest. We brought up his name earlier in the show. We have a special guest next week on the coaching staff.
Nice.
That'll be next week at 8 o'clock. So just going through that. We're in the Discord. It's rocking right now. But yeah, heading into the off season. So make sure we see you in the Discord.
We were this close. We were this close to making it through a full show. Thought we started off
Missing out. Don't miss out. Get it in there now, as soon as possible. You never know when Jared Verse's news could creep up, and you get to hear about it first before everybody else.
And if your New Year's resolution, your New Year's resolution should be to remind Miami fans that we won twice as many games as them this past season.
I forgot they played, like after FSU beat them, I kind of forgot they played for the rest of the season. I don't know if that was just me, but I didn't know that they still played.
They forgot they played too. So,
Jason, any closing comments
about your boss or former boss or whatever it was?
Because speaking of which, I do need to run.
Goodbye.
Got to talk Canes. Regardless of how bad it is or how bad it gets, that's business.
Talk about their bowl win. Oh, that's right.
Oh man.
All right, folks. Next Wednesday, bring some friends with you.
This is Miami fans' time to shine, though. It's the off season.
I know, they're the off-season champs.
Here we go.